Greetings, everyone. Tim Anderson here, aka Renfail, and welcome to the latest episode of Mondays in MMORPGs. I am joined tonight by returning guests. We've got Scribbles from the Defendant Knight. Hello. And we've got AshenPhoenix from Crash. Is it Crash While Loading?
Crash well loading.
Crash While
Hello.
Loading podcast. Um, and we're going to be talking tonight about virtual reality in games, specifically virtual reality as it hopefully will apply to MMORPGs in the near future, quote unquote near. Um, but yeah, we were talking a little bit of pre-show about some of the stuff. But what have you guys been up to this week? Let's chat a little bit about that. What games I have been? I got sucked into Days Gone, which
Mm.
was a freebie this month for PlayStation, and I was literally just gonna stick it in my library and forget about it. And then I finished the first Mass Effect game way earlier than I anticipated, and I was like, do I want to jump into 2 right away? Because Celasta's coming out on the 27th. I don't think I want to. What do I have in my library? And then I saw all this press about the PC port for Days Gone. I was like, hey, I think I got that this month. So I loaded it up. I have not put it down. I've played like this Saturday and Sunday I binged like 10, 12 hours each day, and I haven't binged a game like that in forever. So that's what I've been going crazy with that. What about you guys?
Oh man, I've been trying to get off the fat kick, so I've been eating less food and running a lot of miles. Look, I got a suntan because I actually went outside. It's like almost burnt. Man, so I'm older now. I'm in my 40s, and it's just the metabolism's just
Yep.
not there anymore.
Mm-mm.
My
Oh man,
my spare
I mean,
tire.
I smell Cheetos, and I get an extra tit on my back or something. I mean, you just have to monitor your intake, and you got to exercise, but it's just what you got to do. Stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But
it's
yeah,
rough.
yeah. So along with the healthy side, I also went into the gaming side with a new game called Trover Saves the Universe. It's Rick and Morty. If you guys ever heard of the creator for that, he's got this game company, Squash Games, and he came out with Trover Saves the Universe probably a year or two ago, and it's on all the major consoles. So I wanted to check out the VR in that game because I'm not a real big VR player, so I wanted to get uh, that game under my belt so I could talk a little bit educational, more educational about the VR systems. So I put on the Oculus and did that for 3 or 4 nights, but it was a good experience. What about you, Ashen?
Oh, I finished Resident Evil: The Village, and that was a fantastic experience all around. Uh, really, I've always been a huge fan of Resident Evil since the days when it controlled like a tank in the PS1. Um, that was so much fun, and of course, then I went to play some Final Fantasy 14 last night at 9 o'clock at night Central Time, and naturally the servers were down for maintenance, so I did absolutely nothing last night but watch old episodes of Stargate SG-1.
Which is a
Because
show
why not?
well worth rewatching.
I think this will be my third time.
I've watched it through. Okay, I gotta think about this. I've watched it through all the way once, and I think I've watched it through up to season 7
Yeah, when
when
the true ending really happened.
right, and that was my
Yeah,
second watch through, and I didn't watch the rest of it, including all of the TV movies and everything else, a second time. I only did those once,
yeah.
but I've
After
been
8, 9, and 10, I think they call that Stargate Farscape.
yeah,
Because all the Farscape people started
cast
to,
come
you know
over.
what? Let's
Fuck it.
they've done sci-fi before. We're not working with Muppets now, so they're good at it.
They're free. They're available. Um, so yeah, I've only watched it all the way through twice, I guess is to say. A third, I was debated to do a third time, but when it came out on Netflix, it did not come to Netflix Mexico. So if it
Oh,
would have come on Netflix Mexico, I totally would have binge watched it again. But all the Star Treks are on, so I went through and did another. I did Star Trek Next Generation for the second time. I've already
mm,
done Deep Space Nine 3 times because I really like that one, and I'm
very
debating.
underrated.
Yeah, I'm debating doing Babylon 5 again because the storyline matches up so much with Mass Effect, and it
Mm,
just came out streaming and everything else, and I really love the show. I also follow Straczynski on Facebook and his Patreon and everything
I love
else.
Straczynski.
Oh, he's fucking amazing.
I
Um,
actually think too with Babylon 5, I think the edition they have out now is
it's the 4K.
they sent it through a AI
They
upgrade
upscaled it.
and it's scaled up.
Yeah.
So it looks as good as it's ever going to look for
Since you like
1998
Straczynski,
CG.
did you watch Jeremiah by any
I
chance?
loved I
Oh,
love Jeremiah.
oh my God! You're like the only person I've ever talked to who
Oh
has
wait,
actually ever.
or am I think no, I'm thinking Jericho.
Okay, hang
I
on.
got my Jace
Yeah, because Jericho was the
I,
one that were they
with
were both
nuclear fallout.
well, they were both post-apocalyptic.
I think
Jericho
I
was
What's up, guys?
man. Yeah,
Jericho was the one where it had the like military factions,
and
and
90210 guy in it.
yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, well, no, Jeremiah was the one with the 90210 guy in it.
I think they both had. Oh, and the you're right. Jericho was the guy that was the one of the two killers from the first Scream movie.
Yeah, I can't remember his name off the
Yeah, I
top of my
don't either.
head.
He looks like a
Um,
90210 guy. I
Skeet,
always get him
yeah,
confused.
Skeet Ulrich was Jericho, and
Yeah.
Jeremiah was the one that I loved, which had I'm gonna look it up because he just passed away last year.
Oh, I did see Jeremiah then. Yeah, because that is the 902 one. I've seen both of them.
Okay,
Yeah, I love them both.
so
I just forgot.
Jeremiah was great because I had only ever seen him as an actor. Luke Perry was his name. That's his
Luke
name.
Perry. That's it.
I had
Yep.
only ever seen him in the 90210 kind of Hollywood heartthrob
Mm,
kind of role, and then this show comes out, and I'm like, it's Straczynski, and he's hot off of like Babylon 5 and all this
he
other
had a
stuff. So
comic book series going.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I was like, I'm gonna watch this because I love him as a creator and as a showrunner and writer. And I was like, this cast is like okay, but then I was like, holy shit, Luke Perry can actually act. Like,
Act.
yeah. And this show, if you've never seen Jeremiah, for those of you watching, you gotta watch it. It's a cool
Mm,
post-apocalyptic show where like all the
yeah.
adults die of this disease, and so all that's left are these
That.
teenagers, and the show picks up like 15 or so years after, so all these kids have grown up without adults, with no electricity, no internet, and they've just had to survive in this post-apocalyptic world where adults just ceased to exist, and it's just this cutthroat society. Such a good show, and that's probably why I'm having so much fun in Days Gone right now, because it's got that same vibe of
Yeah, I could see that.
everybody's, yeah, and I don't
I
know.
have to give that Days Gone a look. It's one of those ones that I'm like, I've heard you spend a lot of time, babying your motorcycle, but I'm like, but it
Yeah,
looks fun. I just need to get time to play.
yeah, you do spend a lot of time babying your bike. However, I will say that I'm into the latter half of the game now, and because you can upgrade your bike, if you focus on that first as opposed to upgrading your weapons, it becomes less of an issue, and you could just go for longer periods of time without having to worry about gas and everything else, and you can actually
Okay.
just focus on the missions. But it still is a maintenance thing, which kind of detracts a little bit from the game. It's kind of like the same thing. I have the same thing with like repeatable content in like Assassin's Creed. It's like those quests
Right.
to like whatever. I'm like piss off. I don't want to. I'll do the first
Yeah.
20 or 30 of them to get all the points to buff my character out, but after that I'm
Hmm.
like, meh,
I don't need to
Yeah.
kill 400 more zombies.
no. All right, I'm sidetracking. Sorry guys.
Yeah,
Um
good.
so virtual reality is the theme for
Mm.
tonight, and I know in thinking back to when I was a kid, I can remember very rudimentary. We're talking mid '80s. I was born in 1980, so mid late '80s. I can remember being in arcades and them having very rudimentary holographic, like 3D games. There's like one big console. It was like a fighting game or something. And then it progressed from that to where you had like the 360 environment, and you would stand in like the middle of this like ring cage, which they
Hmm.
still have those today. They still do those, I guess, to some degree, because you can walk on that like round treadmill and turn and everything else, and but you're stationary. um, and then we've evolved to headsets and handheld devices. um, so there has been a progression, but probably not the progression that I thought was going to happen, at least from what I had in my mind. But we are getting closer. But I still feel like we're kind of on the cusp. And I know I sent that article over to you guys a few days ago. I think it was a
Mm,
Polygon article talking about how we've been like I think it says we've been 5 years away for the last 8 years or something like that. It's this
yeah.
thing where we're constantly feeling like we're on the edge, but we haven't quite got there yet. So let's talk about that because I think there's a lot of potential. I look at for me one of my favorite book series is Otherland by Tad Williams, which the concept is the internet has expanded to where everyone's got like a jack in their skull and you could just go online and there are worlds where you can go online and like one of the main characters is this kid who has this horrible disease where he's aging really rapidly and he's bedridden so he can't get up but he's going to die in a few years but as a character in the virtual world, he is like the Thorgar, the mighty barbarian of this MMORPG, this fantasy MMORPG, and he is the baddest warrior on that in that game. So that concept always resonated with me, and especially because in that book series, you've got the casual people who just go online for a few hours, or maybe they go online for, a day. But then you've got the people who have money, who can buy a full-on VR suit and they can
Mm,
literally feel everything, nerve connectors, everything else. They can hook themselves up to an IV drip and go online for days, if not
mm,
weeks, while having liquid nutrients provided to their body, which I think is the extreme version of it. We're definitely not there yet.
yeah.
So with me, I mean, VR is nice. It's cool. I just don't like to stand up and do it. I like to sit in my position and move around. I mean, move my head around. And that's it. I still like to use the keyboard. Still like to use the mouse. So I don't know. I don't know how. For me, I don't know how it's gonna play out. I'm not really there yet. I've been following two Kickstarter games that claim they're going to be the next VR game, VR MMO. Uh, with Alicia, they I think they raised like $90,000 Kickstarter. They're always updating in the Discord, and we're going to provide a link for that. And there's another Zenith. Uh, Zenith was another Kickstarter game. The art style is a little bit out there for me. It's not something that appeals to me, but I'm really interested in seeing how it plays out because the action combat looks pretty good.
Mm,
But yeah, again, I can't do it standing up. I just when I play a game, I want to relax and uh, and not do a whole lot. So that's my free time to hang out. So
yeah,
I,
and
I'm
that's
kind of out.
that's going to be a big hurdle with
Mhm,
VR. Actually, is the as at least when it comes to video games, is it's not
mhm,
something that you could just sit down and relax. Even sitting in your chair,
mhm.
you're not going to be sitting down and relaxing. You're going to be doing this with your arms. You're going to be hacking and slashing. All that stuff is going to be something that has to be figured out. It's going to
Yeah,
be. It's kind of like a. It'll have a Wii sort of a feel for a while, where it was a great gimmick at the beginning, and then it kind of wore off. Yeah, family nights were great for that first 6 months to a year playing Wii Sports, but doing this all the time, after a while, you're just like, what? I just want to sit down and play Mario. I don't want to. I don't want to have to, fling the controller through the nearest plate glass window every
yeah. I think
single
a lot
night.
of people are on the same boat. They play games to unwind after the end of the day.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have to. I mean, it's good to exercise and play VR. That's great. We can do
Right.
that too. But that's one part of it. You take care of that aspect for the activity focused MMO or MMOs VR sets, and then you can kind of get into the other
Yeah.
realm because I think you can't do that for long periods of time before people just get worn out. They don't do it.
Yeah.
You
And
can't
right
have
now
long
too,
sessions.
eye strain is the other problem, of course. At least on modern, like you were saying, Renfail, we've been on the cusp of VR for since 2016 because 2016 was when we got within 6 months we got the PSVR, we got the Oculus Rift, and we got the HTC Vive, all within a 6 month period. And two of those at least have come out with how we have the Quest 2, which is can be completely wireless. We got a PSVR 2
Which is
coming out
forthcoming, yeah.
probably next year.
Yeah.
So the technology. I mean, it's like you had said when we were talking. You don't have one yet because the technology's not. It's advancing so fast.
Not just that, but I think for me, on a personal level, there's not enough of a variety of games for me
Right.
to want to spend several $100s on a headset. And then we were talking about this before the show. Like the one game I looked at where I was slightly interested was the it was a Darth Vader Star Wars game, and I remember when they announced it, it was like 3 or 4 hours of gameplay was all it was going to have at launch, and then they're like, and we will add to that as it goes along, and I'm like, well, why do I want to spend $60 for 3 or 4 hours of content? Like if I'm going to spend $60, I want 30, 40 minimum.
Yeah.
I want to be able to sink my teeth into something and play for several days, and feel like I got my money's worth. But I'm also one of those people who is not. I do view, and I'm not probably in the majority here, but I do view the amount of hours I play in a game to be of equal importance as to the amount of entertainment I'm getting out of it. So if I have to spend 50, $60 for a game, I better be getting a minimum of 30 hours of content. I've been burned a few times. I will say this, that was one of the reasons I didn't feel so burned about Star Wars Squadrons, which does have the VR aspect, which we'll talk about in a minute. I didn't feel so burned by that game because it was only $40, but I
Hmm.
finished the campaign in 6 hours, and I was sitting here going, uh,
Yeah.
is
And that
that's
was
all there
largely because
is?
it was meant to be, for the most part, it's like a Call of Duty. The
Right.
the storyline's tacked on, and it's good. It's a great
It is
story.
great.
Multiplayer is the focus.
I've done it twice now, the single player campaign.
Yeah.
I don't like the multiplayer. I have done the AI
Yeah.
missions, which I think are fun. I know that you've played it in VR. I've just played it normal. That's one of the things where I look at and I'm like, there's maybe 3 or 4 games that are currently out on VR that I would give a crap about enough to want to. So here's the funny thing too, because PlayStation, I have PlayStation Plus, so you get games every month, but they also do this like I can't remember what it's called now, but it's like play of the month or monthly play or something like that. They give away free games every month just to everyone.
Yeah.
And recently, I didn't realize it was a VR only, but there was this game called Farpoint, and I saw it on the store being offered, and I was like, I'm gonna went and watch the trailer, and I was like, this looks freaking cool. Like it's a science fiction RPG shooter game. It's called Farpoint. And I was like, it has a kind of like a Destiny 2 vibe,
Yeah.
maybe. And I downloaded it, and then I went and installed it and everything else, and then I went to play it, and it said VR only, and I was like,
Yeah.
motherfucker, like I don't have a PlayStation VR headset, and I'm not gonna go out and get one. So bear this in mind. I've been playing PS4 for 4 years, at least 4 years now, I think, something like that. Because I didn't get it when it first came out. Actually, no, I got mine in 2017, so 18, 19, 20. Yeah, 4 years. 4 years I've
Pretty.
been playing PS4. Not one time, not once have I ever come across a VR game ever on the PS4 until this game was offered to me for free, which just goes to show
Hmm.
you the scale of what's being offered in terms of VR properties right now. It's so
Yeah.
minuscule compared to the rest of what's available that I haven't felt compelled to go buy a
Yeah.
headset.
Which is
Also,
which is an
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
It's
no, go
the
ahead.
PS4. There's 115 million of them out there worldwide. The headset has sold. I think they expected it to sell like 6 or 8 million in the first year of 2016. As of the article I read before this, in the 5 years since it's been out, it sold about 6 or 7 million. Out of
Mhm.
114 million consoles, it's
That's a
yeah, it's
small
taken
percentile.
it's very small, and because part of the problem is the price, and like you say too, there's not a lot to do with it yet. It's really more of a, hey, let's see let's put grandma in it and see how she reacts so we can throw it on YouTube while she's screaming at, and or face plants into the floor because she thought she was stepping off of a curb.
Uh,
That's pretty much where it's at right now, which is unfortunate because it is great and it is going to be the future of video games eventually.
yeah. You just made something a very key point eventually because my wife is not a gamer at all. And even she, we were having a conversation, it's been a couple weeks back, um, where she looked at it and said, hey, what do you think about virtual reality? Like, do you think? And I'm like sitting here looking at my wife, going, "Are we talking? We're talking video games right now? Cool." Um, but it was like, because she watches me game, and she knows what I do for a living, and she tried World of Warcraft for me for a few months. I mean, I'll give credit for her to that, and and everything else, but she's always just it's a peripheral thing for her. She's not a gamer, and I don't think she
Right.
ever will be. But she's intrigued by the thought of virtual reality, and so we had this conversation a while back about VR, and I kind of showed her where everything's at, and she was basically expounding upon or pontificating about the theory that virtual reality will one day be the future of games. And I'm like, no, I totally agree with you. It's very interesting to have a non-gamer see that perspective, because I know as a gamer for a very long time, that's all I've ever wanted. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think for
Because we're
me,
kids.
right, and I think that's the appeal. I think we talked about this the last time you were on the show, um, because we talked about EverQuest, and one of the appeal there was it was a persistent world. It wasn't a
Right.
play once and you're done. It was a, oh, I can log in. The world has grown bigger. There are more people, different people. They've added expansions. There's more places I can go. There's more things to do. And for the first time, I was able to be in a 3D world, which
Right.
immersed me in a way that I'd never done because
Yeah.
I'm sure you did as well. I had played MUDs before that, and I never got into MUDs like some of my friends did. They were more
Yeah.
of a passing thing for me because I was already playing like Baldur's Gate and all these great single player games that were giving me my fantasy fix.
Link to the Past. Yeah.
Right.
That
And
was my jam.
yeah, and so there were all these other good games that were giving you the opportunity to immerse yourself in worlds, but that first 3D multiplayer world that's evolving, getting bigger, more people all the time, that was the first time I truly felt like this is yeah, I'm stepping into a world is what I felt like with EverQuest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that what was their catchphrase? You're in our world now, I
You're
think.
in our world now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was such a good catchphrase because it was like, "Oh,
It
yes,
really
I am.
was.
Like, I am. I'm totally in your world. You have me."
Such a product of the late 90s, early 2000s, too. You're in our world now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember getting in and feeling like that was the coolest thing ever. And of course, graphics have gotten better over the years,
Oh, yeah.
but I'm sure you've had the same discussions. I talk about this with my brother all the time. We look back at games we played 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever,
Yeah.
and we always look at them and go, I remember when that came out and how I said, best graphics ever. Can't believe how realistic this looks. And like, here I am in 2021 and looking at, like for example, the PS5 version of 2K21, NBA 2K21, sorry, and looking at the graphics on that and going, holy crap, or Madden 21, like the
Mm-hmm.
graphics look so hyper realistic on the PS5 as an example. And then like even looking at like because my Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS4 looks nothing like Cyberpunk 2077 on the
Yeah.
PS5 or the place or the PC. Like
Or
the
yeah, oh, yeah.
the
And it looks
level of
great on my PC.
detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh,
level of
yeah.
detail is so beyond. And it's just like if we could just push it just a little further. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, what do you think? I mean, from a technological standpoint, what's holding us back from that? Like, what's holding us back from taking the dive into creating? Because I look at it and I say, if we can already do first-person combat,
Right.
what is the big leap that makes it such a challenge to go from a first-person game to a virtual reality game?
There's there's a lot, believe it or not. The way I look at VR right now is just if you look at video games in general, we had the arcades, we had the early 80s with Pac-Man and blah blah blah. And then right now, VR would be still in the 8-bit era. I mean, we don't understand. They're we've got plenty of processing power for the most part, but it takes as much processing power as we have. It takes more. There's never enough, and there's never enough fidelity that you can get in those lenses. The other problem is biological. This
Motion control.
is
Yeah.
yeah, well, and it's
Mhm.
it's in here and in your brain because there's a huge incongruity between what you're seeing visually and what your body is feeling, and they're having to figure that out. We don't understand. They're literally figuring out psychology and biology working against their programming, which is why I could jump in a game like I tried this Orbis VR because it's free to 10 levels. It's the only it's the virtual MMO that's out there right now. I got about 15 minutes into that and I had to take my headset off. I felt like I was going to barf my guts out Meanwhile, I could a couple hours later, I jump into Squadrons, and I play that for a solid hour, juking and jeeking in an X-wing, looking around in my cockpit. I'm perfectly fine. And what's the difference between those? Is it's the motion and the movement. There's something different between me sitting in a cockpit and using flight controls versus in Orbis. You either have to teleport where you're going, which is one way that they get around motion sickness in
Oh,
VR right now, which is Trover versus the universe.
yeah.
That's why that happens like that, is because it keeps you from wanting to barf your guts out. Because if there is something to it that they're still working out. A few games have it. It sounds like Half-Life Alex kind of got it figured out, although they have a thing called VR legs, which is like your sea legs. The more you do it, the better your body gets used to that feeling of movement without moving, and you don't feel like throwing up. But they're still in the infancy. It's kind of like figuring out how to make like Super Mario Brothers back in the day was such a huge thing at the time because it was the first game that did that platforming. You had multiple levels. It Nothing like that had ever been done by until Miyamoto comes around and just does it and just makes it work
Yeah,
perfectly out of the gate.
yeah, our vision and sensory uh, senses aren't catching up to what we're seeing, so it's
Yeah.
causing us issues. I think that like when I was in you know the Oculus Rift, I think that it's too, I guess I should say, janky. Is a perfect word probably for it, but
Hmm.
I can move faster than what's normal. Like if I see something, it's not so fast
Frame
and
rate.
janky. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
frame rate is another thing. That's where the processing power, because if it drops, because it's even more than for the human eye in video and animation, 24 frames a second is enough to fool the human eye when you're watching anything in a movie screen. We saw that with the what was that one of the Hobbit movies where they moved that up to 48 frames a second and put it on IMAX, and it looked like a daytime soap opera to us. Yes, it was smoother, but we could tell something
It
was
something
off
felt
because it was too
off.
many frames. Yeah, with VR, you can never have enough frames. The more frames, the better because it's just that much less chance of it skipping a frame, and bam, like that, your brain's like something's not right. This isn't real, and it starts to it instantly. It's you understand what it is, like you were saying, Scribbles. It's just you moving faster than your computer can process it, but your brain pulls you out of that and says something's not right. We need to stop it. We need to slow down and wait a minute because the world just glitched. We had a glitch in the matrix, and hold on. All right, no,
uh,
yep, okay, we're good now.
yep, yep,
You know, that is really the biggest issue. I as I understand it with VR that I've seen, and with MMOs, you compound that. You're playing Half Like Alex or Trover Saves the Universe or Squadrons, and unless you
yes,
play the multiplayer, you're adding a second layer of difficulty because you have other people controlling the characters around you, and which is why, like in Orbis, you're basically a floating, crappy looking torso. The world around you, I mean, it makes Wizard 101 look like top-notch graphics. And if you've played Wizard 101, which by the way, not trashing it, it's a
yeah,
fantastic game,
yeah.
especially for kids.
Has King's Isle.
Yeah, King's Isle. It's a great game.
Mhm.
It looks like The Last of Us Part 2 in comparison to what Orbis looks like. It's very bland, very basic polygons. Everything is spaced out. And on top of that, because it's VR, they still don't apparently know how to tell you what the hell to do. Because I had to look up how to start a quest, which apparently is done by waving your hand in front of the NPC, which I
Makes
didn't
sense.
know.
Why didn't you figure that out?
Right. Yeah, and I started out, I made it all of 12 feet from where I started, and there was plenty of things written in long text walls about things that I had nothing to do with yet because I wasn't there. But I still never found in the 15 minutes before I had to stop, I never found an actual quest NPC that would give me a quest or show me where I needed to go to get out of there to even shoot my gun that I had. I never got to combat in that because it didn't tell you anything because everything was so spread out to keep it from getting janky and making you sick, which didn't really
Mhm.
work because I still got
Mhm.
sick.
Because that's the other thing.
Also,
Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say the other thing that drove me absolutely crazy with VR MMOs that I think is I'm gonna hate is voice activation is always on. I could hear everybody talking around me, and instead of typing, which I know you can't do when you're in VR, hate
Yeah,
hearing people in my games.
I don't either.
That's just the me thing.
I was gonna say the thing that also drives me nuts is because I'm fully on board for. I think this goes back to what Scribbles was saying at the beginning of the episode. He doesn't want to be moving around. I also don't like the hand things. Like not the like you were just saying like wave your hand like
Right,
nah,
that's easy.
but that just kind of takes me out. That's why I like the idea of games like Star Wars Squadrons where I'm in a cockpit setting where I'm still hands-on with controls, like physical controls. Um, and I don't know that that would ever necessarily. I mean, it could change in the future, obviously, as we get deeper into VR. But in that aspect, you're still holding on to something, and so there's that physical grounding to some
Yeah,
degree. Plus, I think because there's not the backdrop of like there's not the perception of space and distance in
right,
outer space as we have like if I'm walking towards a building and I've got ground and I've got buildings and I've got mountains and sky and all this other stuff, you have perception going on, and so your brain is having to process all that, whereas in space it's just an empty backdrop. Well, it's not empty, you know what I mean, but it's
you're right.
black and
Yeah,
it's
when you're flying up to that, the Star Destroyer, yes, it is very big. But like you said, I don't have a ground, I don't have walls, I don't have trees above me,
yeah,
and I have a flight controller for that game, and I can literally look down, and my character has a flight control stick. So
feels
I
real.
feel like it feels. I mean, and I'm sure if you're using mouse and keyboard, it wouldn't throw you out of it either. But the fact that you can just look down and see that what you're tactilely touching, because haptic feedback is, I mean, that's I don't know if anyone if you have seen what the current haptic feedback back gloves look like. I mean, they're like an Iron Man gauntlet. They're massive and they're tens of thousands of dollars. We're not anywhere near like Ready Player One.
Yeah,
And
Like the
and
which
even
Nintendo body glove.
right, which I had. Don't
Remember that
yeah.
guy? That thing
Thanks
was
Cap thanks what was that? Whatever that Nintendo movie was, The Wizard that made me buy that as a stupid kid. That was a waste of $80.
because that's
But
that's
yeah,
to me is for me the thing that's going to take me out is stuff like that. These bulky, things. When I go back to thinking about the way it's portrayed in books and certain movies, um, if and when we can ever get to that point, that's going to be the tipping point for me is when I can actually get in and be immersed without having to have all this bulky stuff that's going to take me out.
hmm
But we're not quite there yet. That was one of the reasons I never picked up the Wii because I didn't like just for me like I don't want to play tennis and the idea of like swinging a sword at
playing Zelda with that sword thing, yeah, that was a challenge.
yeah, it was just
It got exhausting.
right, and it looked to me it was like that to me doesn't look that enjoyable. And I know we're a long way away. Obviously, there's testing being done for chips. I mean, you got Elon Musk's Neuralink company, which is doing rudimentary testing with
hmm
pigs and monkeys, and you know, I think it was intriguing to me to watch the monkey video where they had trained the monkey to pull the joystick to move this thing around when he wanted a treat, and then disconnected the joystick, um, and he was, controlling the movement with his brain.
Right.
That part of it, I look at that and go, that's intriguing for what's yet to come in
hmm
terms of I don't need to wave my hands around physically because my brain is going to tell the VR that hey, I want to swing my sword, but we're so far away from that. It's that
Oh
I
yeah.
don't even think it's a realistic
The
10,
the,
20
s-
years
the
out thing.
Sword Art Online helmets. I don't know if you guys are anime nerds or not, but one of
Uh,
the better animes where you do they it's a virtual world called Angrind, and of course the crazy guy actually gets everybody logged into the game and takes their logout button, and of course if they die in that game, the helmet kills them because it uses like microwaves, and you just lay in bed and the helmet itself transmits everything, so you feel like you're there, you feel tactilely, all that stuff. And then, of course, if you die in the game, it microwave bursts your brain and kills you. It was got a little dark really quick,
Yeah.
but but it's like the for anime MMO kind VR MMO stuff. That's like the go-to anime for a lot of people, and it's really cool, and it would be a fantastic thing to do. But at the same time, I mean,
We're just
could
so
you?
far from that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just getting by. Yeah. Oh, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a helmet on kids and children, and we're gonna shoot microwaves into their brain, and they're gonna see things. So it's like a hallucinogen. No, it's a video game. Yeah, all right. Yeah, we're not approving that. That's
Yeah,
not gonna
it's not
happen.
going to happen. So it sounds to me like for the foreseeable future, we're going to be stuck with some sort of physical headset and gloves because you have to be able to use your hands. There has to be movement, whether it's to touch a panel, to shoot a gun, to swing a
Mhm.
sword and a shield, um, to move things around for puzzles. Um, it sounds to me like that's the future of where we're at right now, anyway. Um,
Yeah, and just for sake of it, like these right here. This is for the Oculus. It's got sensors in here. It knows when I do this, even if I'm not pushing the trigger, it knows my fingers are in there. So they're doing some things with that, and most of the controllers have these weird little, I don't know how it works, but it's got that sensor inside there that it senses the motion of your fingers.
Proximity sensor.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so there are ways they can do that, and the haptic stuff, I mean, yes, when it comes out, obviously it's not going to be an Iron Man gauntlet. They'll be, more like probably I would say probably as thick as, if I'm just future guessing here, like motocross, protective gloves, where they got a couple of extra little bits of padding and stuff like that. Um, but with haptic feedback, which we're finding out with the PlayStation 5's controller, people's fingers are getting tired. Because the buttons, the trigger buttons in like Call of Duty, they resist you pulling the trigger, and it's a bit of a workout. So how do you get by? You have to give options to shut that off, which the PS5 does.
Mm.
But it's also, are you going to be able to do that? Like we were saying with Skyward Sword, you had to swing that. And for you guys, you've played MMOs. I mean, imagine playing EverQuest or World of Warcraft or any MMO where you've
I
had
can't
to.
even
How many
imagine.
swings does it take to kill something? And
Mm.
imagine doing that 100 times in
Mm.
a couple hours. I mean, just
There's
and blocking and doing this. It's
it's
not
that fatigue,
reasonable.
buddy. Yeah,
Oh
it's not
yeah.
really. It's
You'll be.
it comes back to it's a game. I mean, there should be like there's exercising games,
Mm-hmm.
and there's games that we play to have enjoyment and fun. Um, they're both very cool, both of them great games. But you just kind of I think you have to separate those two.
well, from a theoretical standpoint, if you want to be a badass warrior, you should have to be fit and in shape and be able to swing that sword a
Right.
hundred times. But not everyone wants to play that badass
The
warrior.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, some people want to play
It,
the archer, and I mean, doing
and you'd
this
be
for
doing this. Yeah.
5 hours, is gonna get
You'd
boring.
it's the ironic thing is if all that happens, you'd start to know gamers because we'd be the ones out there like, yeah, I do game.
Oh,
Why do you ask me? It's so strong. But only in the upper torso and legs. Yeah, we're not walking around.
Yeah, chicken legs.
It's skipping leg day.
no more
Um,
here. You're so weak. Yep.
I know a few years back, I'm thinking back, I think it was 2015, my wife and I were giving a presentation in Spain. This is right around when Amazon bought Twitch and Facebook was starting to do 360 video. And I remember this has been quite a few years ago now. Hotels were starting to promote um, the VR experience so that guests could come to a hotel and while you're in the room, they've expanded quite a bit since then, but I want to kind of show the progression of this and how it applies
That's
to
cool. That's
virtual
definitely cool
reality.
for advertisement. Yeah.
Right. So the way they were doing it was when you rented a hotel at some of these high-end places, like the Marriott as an example, you would go and rent your room, and in the room, if you rented one of the penthouse suites or one of the high-end suites, they would have an actual hologram set up in the room, and in that you could then go browse the hotels and the penthouse suites in the other hotels around the world. So they gave you a chance to start looking at what other properties would look like. And the idea was that, well, we're going to inspire you to want to go book your next hotel at the penthouse suite in Manila, Philippines, because you can experience the room from the comfort of your suite in London, and it makes you want to go there and do that. Now, in the years since then, they've gone from only having those as holographic displays to now having full on virtual room walkthroughs up on websites where you can go on their website and you can actually do a virtual walkthrough of the entire room, which is not quite the same thing as purely virtual reality hologram
Right.
scenario, but it is a step in that direction. And I know at the same time, augmented reality was becoming a big thing with cars. And I remember kind of being a little bit in awe. This is 2015, 2016. I remember Jaguar was coming out with augmented reality for their cars, and I remember watching the video for it, going, this looks like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie because you're in the car, but like there's no actual speedometer or anything else. It's literally just a heads up display on the windshield. And
Right.
not only do you have that going on, but it's also displaying, like if you have GPS running, it's showing augmented reality waypoints on the windscreen in front of you as you're driving. So instead of like if you're on Google Maps,
Yeah.
whatever, and it's got the arrow and then it points left or whatever. It's on your windshield, so you're actually seeing it go up, and then there's the street you're turning left at, and it's literally showing you to go left there. And it's not this huge thing that takes up your whole screen. It was just this very, non-intrusive HUD on your screen. But the thing that really blew me away was the peripherals because it had all these sensors all around the car. And so if there was a pedestrian that was too close to your car, it would pop up. There would be like a silhouette of a human being on the passenger side window, like
Hmm.
as a heads up display, and you'd hear this warning, and then you could also see that, and then there would be a display on the in front of you as well that was saying, hey, something over here, and the same thing when you're backing up. I mean, it was just this whole kind of augmented reality inside your car that was overlaid on top of the actual windscreen, windshields and side windows. And I haven't actually looked into how far that's come along before this show, but I know back in 2015, 2016, I was pretty amazed by what they were doing
Yeah.
with augmented reality within vehicles and hotels. And I think that even if gaming isn't necessarily pushing all of the limits and the boundaries of certain things. There's a lot going on with virtual reality outside of games that I think will end up coming back around. I mean, even augmented reality is also already a thing within games too. We've seen it with Pokemon Go, and we've had
Hmm.
what are other games that do? There's
There's
Pokemon.
Ghostbusters, a Harry Potter.
Harry Potter was the one I was
Um,
thinking of. Thank you.
there's a dragon one, and then there's Invictus, which is what the Pokemon Go company did before Pokemon Go.
Okay, because I knew about Pokemon Go, and then I remembered the Harry Potter was the one that I couldn't remember. So I'm
Yeah,
glad you mentioned that, but I didn't know about the other ones. So I mean,
the
we're already
Ghostbuster one's pretty cool.
okay. How does that one work? Are you hunting ghosts or?
You're hunting ghosts, and unlike instead of catching ghosts, you're still catching ghosts, kind of like you did the Pokemon, but you use your blaster pack. You have to take down their energy levels, and then you throw out a ghost trap on these
Nice.
Ghostbusters. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Didn't
So,
take off like Pokemon, but it was still pretty cool.
is Pokemon Go still a thing? Because it was huge for like
It's
six
My wife
still it's
still
months.
still huge. It's still
my
huge.
wife still plays it every day.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, yep. It's still a huge community for Pokemon. Never, not what it was when it was that cultural phenomenon that one summer, and it played horribly. But it's definitely still out there. But you actually got me thinking too, because augmented reality. The other thing that article you put up is they were talking about trying the problem with VR is the headsets are massive. I mean, you're
Hmm.
wearing a small TV on your head and you got the straps. So if they can get that down to what was it the Google Glass that they
Oh yeah.
Microsoft had one where they were
Yeah, pair of glasses, man.
yeah, and they showed Microsoft's had like a kitchen table, and it was Minecraft like built up from it, and they were looking around and doing that. But if we can get a good headset that actually works, and with things like 5G, it's actually a lot more likely that you would be able to. You wouldn't have to have it loaded into the thing; it would stream directly to you, um, all of XCloud or Google Stadia. And just imagine being able to walk around with those goggles, seeing everything around you, but you're down at the park slashing orcs and goblins and stuff. Like there's a goblin nest down there, and you're the actual world like Pokemon Go becomes a fantasy MMO where off in the distance you could
That
a
sounds way
building
more.
downtown looks like a castle instead. Downtown New York is covered
Yeah,
in bricks and
right. You can,
parapets and stuff like that.
yeah, you could have a LARP tournament, but it's actually VR or
Exactly.
augmented reality. So that sounds pretty cool.
And
I
that
I
sounds a
did.
lot more realistic in
Mhm.
terms of that sounds a lot more doable in the
Hmm.
foreseeable future as opposed to a truly immersive VR experience, because we're already seeing large steps being made in that augmented reality space.
Yeah.
Um,
Like with the Ghostbusters one, if or Pokemon, you can actually see the ghost, and you can physically move around it with given you're on your phone, but you can
Right,
move around it and you can do the capturing.
right,
I mean, it's a pain in the butt because you also have to then keep your phone exactly pointed at it
mm,
the entire
right.
time, so that's why
You,
nobody uses that mode.
it'd be great for first-person shooter games too. I mean, if you you know
Yeah.
how many paintball fans there are out
Is
there that go, instead of you shooting a paintball, you can just have
yeah.
augmented reality,
y-
and then their head blows off,
Yeah.
or
Call
some
of Duty
crazy
Go.
stuff. Call of
You
Duty
get
Go.
24 people at a paintball thing like you were saying, and everyone's got their little fake plastic gun, and you see you can
And their head
bullets shooting off into
so
falls.
the
now,
distance.
now this is this
Yeah.
this is the next big thing for EA is because now they're going to build actual battlegrounds and
They probably would.
where they charge you access to get in, and then
Hmm.
they also charge you access for the
Oh
for
yeah, and
yeah
they'll make you rent the gun,
yeah
and yeah,
yeah
it's however many bullets. That's a quarter a bullet. Just
yeah.
which is oddly, sadly, still cheaper than an actual bullet, but that's
It
beside the
is.
point.
How much? I don't even know how much real bullets are these days.
Depending on the caliber, they are almost I
Aren't
like
they like
5.56 is
$3?
over is like a is I think right now like buck 25,
Yeah,
buck 50.
I-
It's
that's
even
expensive.
22s are almost impossible to come by. There's no more plinking.
I remember being a
Doesn't
kid.
exist.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember being a kid and it was nothing. And
Yeah,
then my
like 10
dad,
cents for 50 rounds. Yeah.
right? Yeah, my dad and all his buddies had their own reloading stations in their at home. So it was like every Sunday after church, that was the thing. Was they would all. It was either they were all coming over to our house or we were all going over to their house and
Yeah, even
pressing.
reloading materials or it'll save you some money, but if you can get hold of them, man, it's expensive to have bullets.
That's crazy. But yeah, I think the idea of I like the idea of paintball arenas with virtual reality glasses and
Right.
that
This
sounds
is
that sounds
awesome.
realistic to me because that's one of the
Mhm.
things that we had in our notes tonight was how
Well,
far
you have
out.
the laser tag, paintball fields. I mean,
Right.
this stuff's already there. It's already in place. It just needs us to, developers or the industry to go in and make it happen. So
Because
that's doable.
that would be the thing for me is how far do we think that we're out from a truly immersive VR experience? Because I look at it and I go, the headsets have been out for 6 years, 7 years now, um, and they haven't necessarily. How do I say this? I don't feel like they've gotten better. The hardware has gotten better. Maybe the hardware's gotten a little bit better.
Resolution.
Yeah, software's gotten a little bit better. Resolution's got a little bit better, but we haven't really advanced beyond having the two controllers and the headset yet.
Hmm.
And we've seen that in a space of since what did you say? You said 2016 was when they really first
Yeah,
burst onto the
5 years.
scene. So 5 years ago. Um, I mean, do you
We
think
need
that that's something that's going to happen within the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think we need our Elon Musk of the virtual reality scene.
Hmm.
That's what we need. Just to say that he can do it and get it, done. We need more innovators, but yeah, it all takes time though, time and
Yeah, and
money.
there's I don't what is that called? Synergy or something like that. There's some arcade, bowling alley, movie theater, blah 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 thing here, and they have I'd say it's probably like 12 by 12. It's a box, and you can have up to I think it's 3 or 4 players. It's VR, which is great because it was before the pandemic when we did this, where everyone was putting the same thing on, and of course no one was spraying them down, not even like bowling shoes. So I'm sure it's still there. But it had sensors everywhere, and it was basically you had a tactile gun, big plastic. It was like something out of Aliens. It was awesome. You put on the helmet, and me and Sid, my wife, it's her online name, obviously. We shot zombies. We blasted the crap out of zombies, and this giant box actually kept track of our body movements. We were walking around, but it knew where we were the entire time. We
How,
were still tethered, obviously,
I was gonna say, how does that
but
work without you banging into walls and stuff? Because you're
well,
walking forward.
right there. Well, in the game, they included like there was only so far we could walk. So walking in the game, we could see, look down. There's the barrier. I can't go any farther than that because you also know that if you do, you're gonna bump into it. You're gonna feel that. So you knew not to go, charging at anything like that. But it was a lot of fun. But it took an entire. I mean, that's 12 by 12. That's the size of some people's bedrooms.
Hmm.
You know, on a good day. And that's the other problem with VR is space. I mean, it takes. I'm in this tiny little corner here, and I'm limited to just sitting down. And I've banged my hand. I've banged it on this thing behind me. Um, I lose track. But space is the other. It seems like it's a really going to be a huge hurdle for a lot of people, especially places uh, like European cities and flats and things like that. They don't live in a lot of space.
No,
America,
and
we have a lot of space for the most part, but there's still apartments, things
when you
like
said
that.
12 by 12 bedroom, I'm like sitting here going, because I'm in Mexico City, and I'm like, I don't think our
You're in a major
bedroom.
city.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think our bedroom is. It might be 12 by 12, but I don't think it is. I'd say
right,
it's probably more like 10 by 10. But yeah, I mean, I lived in Bulgaria for a few years, and there's no way in hell, like Eastern Europe especially, those communist block buildings. I mean, we're talking major.
right,
Sofia is a major city. It's not. I mean, there are so many game companies in Sofia, Bulgaria now, and there have been for the last decade. But even that is a major city. You're right. The apartments are small, and then you start getting into like
right.
Asia. Forget
Oh
about
yeah,
it.
yeah. And it's yeah. Not I'm not bashing on it. That's just the way it is.
It's
And
culture. Yeah.
if you're gonna have, yeah, it's a cultural thing. They've built up over some places thousands of years. And even our country, America, here we're a little over 200 years old, and we've got a lot of space. We tend to build out, not up,
Up.
except for
Yeah.
a couple exceptions. But a lot of places they don't have that luxury. I'm watching. Was it Nuke's Top Five, which is a guy that does scary videos on YouTube. My wife and I love it. But when they do the ones over in like European hauntings and things like that, they've got what for us would be a mini beer fridge up where the pool table's at, but that's just their fridge. And right next to that is their dishwasher, and right next to that is the washing machine. It's all right there in the kitchen, which is also, you know,
So, on a
eight
side
feet
note,
wide.
for anybody who's ever
Right.
watched our videos, anytime I'm doing the Lotro cooking in real life videos in our kitchen, our washing machine is literally right next to the kitchen stove because
Right.
that's just. And
How you
when I was in Bulgaria, it
That's where you got
was.
more space.
Yeah, in Bulgaria, it was kitchen sink, stove, dishwasher, dryer, fridge, all in one row, and that was it. And here we have a similar thing, but we have an L. So, but yeah, it's the kitchen sink, the washing machine, it's all in
Yeah.
there.
So VR has to overcome that because
Yeah.
VR can't take off only in America. It just doesn't work. It's like movies only working in America anymore. It doesn't work like that. China's a huge market. Europe, the world is the market at this point. You can't really build anything for one specific country, no matter how much money and wealth they might have. It doesn't work like that anymore. Everyone has that kind of stuff. So you have got to, if you're going to do your VR game, you've got to go augmented, like we were just brainstorming earlier, or you've got to be able to make it so that somebody can do it in, I don't know,
yeah.
what's the 5 by 5,
5 by 5 space. Yeah.
yeah, the arm span of somebody's able
Okay.
to swing out and
Yeah,
swivel in a chair.
I think the best thing for them to do is just think about the monitor and replacing the monitor with something like this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
something lightweight, and getting controller usage, and then that's it. I mean, that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
Um, I
and
don't know
work
the
on movement so
motion
you don't make people
motion
throw up.
controller thing. I don't
Eh, Yeah.
short term it's fine, but not relaxing and
Well, and there will be ways around that. For example, what I keep using on the Switch was Zelda. I want to call it. I don't Skyward Sword or I forget the. It was one that had the motion controls, and you in that one you use this use that and like that. But it's coming to the Switch, and obviously the Switch, while it does have the motion controls, if you take off the little Wiimotes or the little whatever they call them,
side
yeah,
controllers.
controllers, yeah. But they've actually remapped it so that while you are still swinging the sword, now you're using the little thumbstick to swipe like that,
Yeah,
and
not too bad.
that will probably work a lot better in an MMO.
Mm.
We're using buttons to cast your spells and things like that. So there are ways around it. There's clever ways to do it. Given with that, you kind of also lose the ability to.
Yeah,
You're gonna
the,
have to figure out how to look around in the 3D space, which you won't need a right joystick for because you can just do this and look up and you're perfectly fine and you can just look around. So you might not need that, FPS version of the extra control stick to do that.
I just
And you can
remember
instead use that to
it's got to be
towards
so intuitive though. It's got to get rid of
right.
this thing because that. Oh
there's
Hmm.
a
man, there's a
lot
lot
you
of
can do
PC
with the
players.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
You
they're gonna
just
have to do add button. Basically, they're gonna do what going from the NES to the Super Nintendo. They're gonna have to add buttons to
buttons.
these stupid little control. There's one, two, three, four, and then there's the one for the start. So there's four buttons that I press on this, and that's it.
Because you said something earlier about how because this is part of the voice activation thing.
Oh yeah.
And there's components to that I like, but one thing I don't like is what you were saying earlier in terms of that's the one downside right now is that everyone's on voice, and so you
Hmm.
can't. It drives me nuts as well. The I remember there was a big I'm going to use this term in a joking way. There was a lot of fallout when Fallout came out about how voice was automatically on for everyone, and they eventually
Yeah.
patched it to where you could turn that off.
Awful.
Because I've been in games, I can't remember what I was, something on the PS4 I was playing, where I went into multiplayer mode, and I know what it was. It was ESO of all things. I was playing ESO a couple months back, just out of, I hadn't played it in a while,
Right.
and I didn't realize that it automatically had like when you're in the vicinity of other people, like you can hear them talking, at least on the PS4. Like,
Yeah.
so if they're
Yeah, because that's
talking,
not on PC.
no. So I was like in this area in this part of the city, and then these other players came in, and I was like, all of a sudden they were having this conversation, and I was like, what? What's who? What? And I turned around and I realized it was because these other players were in the room, and I was like, oh, how do I turn that off? Because that immediately pulled me out of my
Hmm.
immersion, which in a way sounds silly because you would think that if I'm in a virtual world and there are other players there, then
No, no,
it
no.
would be like the three of us talking in the same room at the same time. But the issue I see with that is the kids like and I say the kids, I'm going to sound like a boomer now.
Old man yells at clouds.
Yeah.
You get off my lawn, kids.
I'm going to sound like I'm the boomer gamer
Grandpa
now.
Simpson. Yeah.
But it's like I watch a
No,
lot of
you're right.
TikTok. I watch a lot of TikTok videos of Call of Duty streamers because I can't. I've played a lot of Warzone with my cousins and my uncle, and I have fun when I play with them. But I can't stand the game without. If I'm not playing it with them, I never touch it. But I do like watching clips of the cool things that people do. But the one thing that just drives me nuts is the trash talking
Hmm.
that these little 15-year-old kids throw out, and it's like that to me immediately, and I think that was one of the big controversies around Fallout when it came. Was it Fallout 76 or the
Fallout
MMO?
76.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the MMO that came out. The controversy around that was because people were throwing out racial slurs
Oh yeah.
and everything else, and
And there's
that
no chat logs. Yeah.
no, and there's no way to count. And I will say this because I played as much as I love playing with my uncle and my cousins. They're from Missouri, and I grew up in Missouri. And one time my uncle couldn't play, so one of their friends came in, and this guy was dropping the N word like
Oh.
every third word, and I was like, "What? Why? Like, why do we need to talk like that in the 21st
Right.
century, especially as an adult? I don't get the need to act like that when you're in an on because I guarantee you don't talk like that at your day job or you wouldn't
No,
have a
because you
day
get your
job.
ass beat.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a day job or you'd be in jail. So why do you do it when you're online? And that's the thing that always gets me about
Hmm.
open voice chat where everybody says everything because if there's no chat and who was it? There is a game that just said they were going to start they're going to start logging. They're actually going to start recording
Oh,
chat.
yeah.
It was Ubisoft. Fuck, this
Yeah,
happened
I think
recently
yes,
too.
yeah, yeah. That's
Was
it.
it
That's it. That's it.
Destiny or
I'm gonna go look at this. I gotta Google it
no?
now.
Yeah, and it sounds and that one makes me nervous because it sounds good on the surface, but at the same time, they're also going to save that in perpetuity, and there's data that they can pull from things like that as well. It's going to make them money because
Yeah, yeah,
that's
of
basically
course.
what it does. What was that game? I want to say it was like Destiny or something like that.
Valorant. It was Riot Games.
Valorant.
I was
Oh,
thinking
really?
Ubisoft, but it was
Yeah. Is the
it
yeah
was
yeah
a
yeah.
shooter. That's what I was thinking. But it's Valorant, which is Riot Games announced that they will be recording voice chat in order to root out toxic players. But you know for sure that that will eventually become a data mining tool
Hmm.
for we're going to sell this data. But I did, you know, taking my conspiracy theory corporate bullshit hat off for a minute. I do see the plus side
Right.
of but here's the thing. Any policing is can always be taken too far. Um, it's no different than, we have drunk driving rules and speed limits for a reason. Um,
Yeah.
but obviously we have cops that take their
Power
control a little
concern.
too
Yeah.
seriously.
Every
Um,
job has shitheads.
Right. So it's like I look at this and I go, it's on the surface it looks good that they're going to be trying to root out toxic players. On the surface it looks good. But the controversy raises is how far is too far? What is toxic to you might not be. And this is where people get into the freedom
Hmm.
of speech thing because it's like, well, I should be able to call you a fucking dipshit, but fucking dipshit's offensive. Not to me. Like,
Right. Yeah. I've been called worse by better.
right. So it's like, at what point, what is toxic? Who defines what toxic is? That's a very tricky line to cross.
Yeah. Well, and then you have these companies that, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch recently with the hot tub girls.
Yeah,
They have their rules, and then when it's inconvenient for
they change them.
them to follow the rules, they're like, well, we're just gonna delete the hot tub girls for now, and then we'll update the terms of service later. They're not actually doing anything wrong. And given I don't, I'm not watching that. I don't care. It's dumb to me. But at the same time, fine. You found your niche, and people are willing to pay and watch you. Kudos, go for it. Do what you want to.
Because the
But
And
thing
now
with
you're not being monetized.
then Ashen links his OnlyFans.
Like, follow me at OnlyFans at AshenPhoenix.com. Yeah.
So
because that was the
yeah,
other thing too I talked about recently. I don't remember where. So I speak Spanish, and other people speak other languages, and some people speak multiple languages. And if we're talking a game like Valorant where it's primarily English speaking, let's say you get someone in who's multilingual, and the easiest way around that toxic voice chat thing is to just start using a non-English language because you can
Mhm.
cuss somebody out in another language and no one's going to know any better unless they've got the moderator staff on
Yeah.
hand to actually
I
take
could
care
call you.
of that.
I could call you a gros croissant, which is French for fatty boy. It's the only thing I know in
Well, my
French.
wife calls me gordo, so that's literally
but
all men in Mexico are called gordo.
and going back to what you're saying with the audio thing, when I was playing Orbis, for example, the chat was on and it was innocuous. They weren't doing anything, but I'm trying to figure this out. I'm listening to a level 30 guy telling a level 5 like step-by-step instructions how to open his menu and like
you're
I
following every
figured
word. Yeah.
Oh
and I
man.
can't get away from it. I'm like and his voice is like I call them screechers. Those anybody under the age of 12 that talks online is a screecher. They haven't hit puberty. If they talk loud enough, they can actually break glass like an opera singer. It's
Yeah.
awful. It's like sandpaper on
Get
glass to
off
the
my
ears.
lawn!
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then they start talking about your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big thing for that is you need to make sure that people
Yeah.
that you could hear in your proximity are on your friends list or something along
Mm-hmm.
those lines.
Yeah. And
Uh, I think
and
that'd be a good compromise of that. But you got to find a way to get friends too.
right.
So that's another hurdle that
Yeah.
you have to figure out.
And it does pull you out of you're in a virtual and we'll just say fantasy world. You're wanting to live the Lord of the Rings VR MMO. But at the same time, not everybody comes in talking like this and
Hmm.
tells you that they have to go and go
May
over here and
Govanen.
fetch and kill 12 rats. Instead, they're like, I gotta go over here. And this dude in the wizard hat with the long beard, I don't know what his name, Gordoff, is telling me I gotta kill like 15 dire rats. I don't know how to read that kind. That's the majority of people when they're talking online. It's for people like
Well,
me too that love role playing.
Yeah, it's
It's
different.
gonna be a tough one.
I was gonna say, for the role play perspective, that's one of the reasons that I've always been turned off by automatic voice chat
Hmm.
on in a space. So, like what you were saying, Scribbles, having the option to have like your friends only is good. I think it's great to have the option to have it open to everyone if you want to be that type of person. But as someone who enjoys role playing as well, I don't want to hear what Ashen was
Screecher.
just saying. I don't want to hear the redneck dipshit who doesn't understand a fantasy world, like, and he's just trying a game because his friend said it was cool, or it was,
Hold on, I gotta go AFK. The Gators are back.
just,
You know.
you know, I want to be immersed when I'm in a game, and that to me is the appeal of virtual reality, is the immersion into the
Hmm.
game world. Unless they, maybe the solution is we get an automatic filter for everybody's voice, and it just makes them sound like British.
Which which actually is getting better. I mean, those the I don't know if you've heard. Well, I think it was. This has been a few years now, but Google has a artificial voice that they were doing. It was AI, and it was adaptive. It would like talk back to you, but it was done so well that if you didn't know that it was actually artificial, you would swear that it was a real person. Because what it was testing for, ironically, customer service calls, and it was they were using it, and they called the program to make an order of Chinese food, and so they're like, yeah, I'd like the cream of some young guy, and they're like, okay, hold on, yeah, we got that. Hold on one second, okay, and we got it, and it used little human things like, oh yeah, that's fantastic. Just one second. It was very well done. It's also, it was the crazy advanced program. It's not something you're getting on Siri anytime soon, but it does exist,
Right.
and that could be, and that's, I think honestly that's probably going to be where a lot of like in Elder Scrolls they hire voice actors for everything. I think the AI and that stuff is going to take a lot of jobs, especially if you're advanced enough to do a VR MMO. You're probably advanced enough to be able to afford that program and then just tweak voices, change accents, and type in what you want. Hit play, and it
So on
off
a
it
on a
goes.
side note, because I don't want to try to take away from the conversation from VR, but because you just mentioned something that I think ties into this, and I want to give a real world example, if you
Mhm.
have enough money to do something. So I grew up on a dairy farm in a long time ago, and so I remember all of the manual labor that went into the the actual milking of cows and all of that stuff. And my wife was watching a documentary, which I think it actually came out in 2017. It was, I think it's called Making Milk or something like this. But it's a documentary. It was all in Germany, and it's about these big German farms. And I happened to glance over last night because I was like, "What are you watching? This sounds like cow stuff." And
About
it
my childhood.
right. And so I like watched over, and what blew my mind, because I have not been involved with any of this since I was 16 years old, basically. But from the time I was 7, 8 years old, earlier than that, like 5 years old, doing chores. But like I started milking cows at like 7, 8, and I did that all the way up to I was 16. But we did it all manually. But now the farms, like the big farms,
Oh
um,
yeah.
you go in, and so I'm watching these farms in Germany. It's all robots, and it's all automated, and it's like the cows just get up on this carousel, and they just start eating food, and it goes around, and like literally
Right.
there's a machine that comes up first. The first machine that comes up and it washes the udder and the tits.
Because they are disgusting.
Yes, and so this is something I was telling Chris, like when I did it, we had three different dip cups is what we had. So one would be a wash, one would be a disinfectant, and you got to do each one of the tits, and then you got to take a paper towel and dry it off, throw that away, do the next one, wash up, then you put the machine on manually, and then you take it off, and then you put a protective dip on. And now it's all the fucking robots do everything. You
Yeah,
don't do
wow.
anything at all. You just have one guy like making sure that the machines aren't screwing up. And I looked at that and I went, as much as I hated being a dairy farmer when I was a kid growing up, I would totally do that. But that's the thing. You have to have enough money. And
Hmm.
if you do have enough money to get into that, you do it in such a way where everything is automated so that you don't have to lift a single finger. And so that just popped into my mind when you were talking about if you've got the money to do this in
Yeah.
VR, you've probably got the money to do that. And so I just thought I'd throw a real world example out there.
Unless you're, of course, ran like Amazon Game Studios and you spend $500 million a year and you have absolutely nothing to show for it after 6 of them. So there is
'Cause
that too. I guess money
revamping things.
money doesn't do everything. You actually have to have half a brain. And God, what a
I'm
disappointment of a
fairly
company.
impressed that that Renfield tied in milking with the gaming industry.
That was
I'm mind blown.
that was elegant. That was elegant.
You can either blame the wine or my intellect. Either way, I might
Let's
come out
blame
ahead.
both.
Either way, it was eye opening.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But it's just in my mind, it's like if you can spend the amount of money to do something like that, then you can afford to do all those things.
So, you guys are both EverQuest fans, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So, Alicia, that's the VR game that's in development that I supported on Kickstarter like 6 months ago. I did it linked it in chat, but
Hmm.
it's definitely it looks just like it's an EverQuest throwback, but
I
in VR.
got that vibe too, looking at the
Yeah,
trailer.
it's EverQuest. So if we have any EverQuest fans that I know are watching, go ahead and check it out. It's ILYSIA. It's a VR MMORPG. They're in development. I don't know.
I'm watching the
I'm not
trailer
gonna
right
say
now.
I'm not gonna say they're gonna release it or anything, but it's looking good. Um, I don't know the team very well, but
They've
I
got a
know
lot of
about it.
trailers, which are pretty promising.
The trailers are there, and
How
the
much?
Discord
How
is
much
very
did you say
active.
they raised on Kickstarter?
I think it was like 90,000.
Do you know how
Yeah.
big their team is or anything like that?
I don't. But I just know I've been there's some good hype behind it if you're an EverQuest fan. So
Team 21
Yeah.
Studios.
Yeah, and for me too, that's actually one of the things I wrote on here. That's gonna be all aside from the technology and all the things we've talked about before, will be instrumental in any breakthrough MMO that VR MMO that comes out is gonna be style, because you've got the one you did, Alicia, there, which is definitely. I mean, that looks like they just could have
yeah,
ported
it looks like
over old school EverQuest into
EverQuest
VR.
or and RuneScape and just the same.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
um,
you have Zenith, which is very
it-
anime
it's very
oriented.
anime, so it's kind of like the same thing, but with anime with action
Right.
combat.
So
So
cell shading and things like, which with cell shading too, that cuts down on a lot of processing power because you could make something look
yeah,
stylized. World of Warcraft, it works great for World of Warcraft. The
mhm,
game's very stylized, but it runs on a toaster,
right.
and has since it came out.
Well, you got to keep your if you're the first doing something, you
Hmm.
got to keep your scope fairly small to get everything done. So I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I see good things from this because their scope is not so crazy, large, and they're not promising the world. They're just trying to do a VR MMORPG. So
I was gonna say, just at a
hey,
brief look at their website, it looks like they got half a dozen staff, and then they've got some volunteers. They said they were going to be out in 2020. That didn't happen. Their Steam page
At least
says
there's a good excuse for that these days.
right. Steam says that 2021. So, but I've noticed like on their Kickstarter, they're doing at least monthly updates for everybody, and like Ashen was saying, they have a lot of trailers out. So I mean, from a it's not Oath as an example. I mean, it hasn't just fallen off the map and not updated people for
Right.
2 years or Pathfinder Online or something like that. So fingers crossed. I mean, it's interesting, but I also there's a part of me that's also trepidatious
right.
about a six-man team trying to pull off a VR experience because are they really going to be able to do VR
Well,
justice
And
with
how big is the game?
right. What's the scope of that going to look like? I mean, it looked. I'm not gonna. Don't get me wrong. I just watched the
Right.
trailer and
We
everything,
don't know.
and it looks intriguing. Not enough for me to go out and buy a VR headset though.
No.
Right. I'm just excited about this a new EverQuest like VR. Whoa, that's different. Um, in the scope, and I backed
Yeah.
it because of the it looked aesthetically pleasing to me. As my background was EverQuest. And so yeah, I threw
Yeah.
some money down on
And
it.
for me, it's
We'll see.
as good as that looks. I'm actually kind of I'm having seen it. I'm actually looking forward to trying Zenith. And
Mhm.
they're saying by the end of this year, which so we'll be able to try that soon, and we'll actually have real world knowledge of how well or not well that works. And they, at least off the trailers, it looks like it has pretty good big scope. The cities look pretty good size. They've got a it's very bright, more of a Zelda Breath of the Wild feel, like very vibrant and very colorful, which is another thing. Is that in VR, is that going to be too much color? Is it not going to be enough?
Oh,
It's
that brings up a very good point because you've played. I think you've probably played more VR out of the three of us.
No, sorry, Alicia raised $159,000, so that's
that's
Okay,
impressive.
that's
quite a bit
good.
more than 90.
That's a
So
chunk.
sorry about that.
How do spell effects like? Does that put you? Have you played a game where there are a lot of spell effects going off? Because I know that when I play games that have too many spell effects just on a 3D atmosphere, I get like turned off by that. It's like there's just too much. Like Final Fantasy 14, it overloaded
It's
me on
there's
some of the boss
if
fights.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Girlfriend Reviews, but they're a
No,
fantastic YouTube channel. They've coined the phrase "diarrhea Christmas lights," and
that's brilliant.
Final Fantasy
That is
14
perfect.
is nothing but. And if you saw the trailer for the new Reaper class, they upped the diarrhea. It's like full on Taco Bell night for a week solid diarrhea Christmas lights.
Well,
Um,
I'm
I
proud to say that Defend the Night will not have the diarrhea effect. So
you won't
the
be
diarrhea
shitting light
effects.
everywhere.
Nope. Sorry, guys.
Ah, well, that
I'm
kind
not
of
playing now.
what kind of modern MMO is that? No.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to remember. I think actually, yeah, in a way, and it's not a spell effect. Beat Saber, you have you have two
That's a
lightsabers.
that's a cool looking game. I see people
It
streaming
it's
it.
it's a
It
lot of
looks like a lot of
fun.
fun, but yeah, you got
Is
hey,
it the music one where
it's
you've got the
great fun to
boxes
It's
get.
the
coming at
music
you?
one where you're like boom, 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 and you're
Yeah.
slicing things with lightsabers in your
But
hand, but those
you can
cubes
only
are
do
flying
that.
at you.
You can only do that for so long. I mean, it's definitely
I
45
it's a
minute game.
workout.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
definitely
workout. But those cubes are flying at you, and they are glowing, and you slice them, and there's spell effect, and there's particle effect. I'm not spell effects, but there's
well 40.
particle effects, and at least in the background is very psychedelic.
Mm,
They've got all sorts of shining Tron-like things in the background, and it doesn't bother me. At least that one doesn't, and that's probably the most intense of particle effects that you could be considered spell-like. I I trying to think of others like some of the
Because
the
there haven't
demos I've played,
there
but
haven't
there's
been any
not anything that's not
MMORPGs
that.
that have come out yet, right?
Oh, Orbis. Orbis is the only one I know of that's even halfway playable, and
yeah,
I never even got to combat, so I don't know.
there's not many out there, buddy. Um, it's rough for the VR MMORPG genre right now. So
Yeah, yeah, and
there might be
according to
some, but they're very small in scope. And
yeah, and Orbis, sadly as small in scope and scale as it is, Orbis VR seems to be the biggest one out at the moment. There were when I logged in, there were people all around me. Well, all around me, the space was huge.
yeah,
Um,
so
So
but it's not
theoretically,
like
by the end of this year, theoretically we'll have Zenith and what is it, Elysium? Elysia?
well,
Lycia's probably
could
going to be
be.
another year. But I think I'm going to do a little shilling because I'm from Pittsburgh and Shell Games does a lot of VR games, and
Hmm.
the best they just came out with a new game called Until You Fall, and it's an RPG, but you're having a sword fighting style. So you're actually it's kind of a dark fantasy fighting style. So check that out if you.
Hang on, I'm googling it now. What's it called?
Yeah, Until You Fall by Shell Games, Schell Games.
Until You Fall. Okay, sorry. Until You
Until You Fall.
Fall.
Oh,
That's a
and it's on,
perfect.
and they got it on PSVR too, which honestly, that's kind of the standard right now. Is if you're able to get it approved and processed enough to be on the PlayStation and run on their system and with their VR set, you've probably got a
Yeah.
pretty solid VR game right now.
So the Shell Games, they do a lot of VR games, and they're hired by a lot of companies like Disney to do their VR. So that definitely check those guys out. They got a lot of games out there. Pittsburgh, what's up?
Yeah,
I'm just watching this trailer real quick.
it reminds. Yeah, I don't know how many of you guys played the arcade game of the Star Wars arcade game that had the flight stick, but there were a few levels where you used the flight stick to be the lightsaber for
Yep.
like Luke
Yep,
Skywalker
I
fighting.
do remember that.
It looks
Yeah.
a lot like that, actually. I mean, in VR, which would make it even more awesome. And that was still fantastic. I actually beat that in the arcade. I spent quite a bit of money on that one. But no, that looks yeah. I mean, that's the other. Like we
Yeah,
went over it.
that's another 45-minute game though. You can only
Yeah,
play like in short sessions, short bursts because you get
yeah,
tired.
and I actually I went way I actually the
Hmm.
Beat Saber. I had to stop not because I was tired, or my eyes were sore, or I was feeling nauseous. I was getting so sweaty that it was getting into my eyes, and it was the you don't want to sweat into your VR headset. By the way, it's
No, it'll.
gross,
It's gross and
and
ittle. Yeah, that's
it's
long
gonna get
term.
nasty. It's
Yeah.
gonna there's gonna be some issues with that, which is something else that they're gonna have to figure out. How do
Especially
you
for a
keep
guy like me. It drives my wife nuts. I don't know. It sounds to me like you sweat when you get going. I will sweat just sitting here, especially my forehead, my whole head just which I was
You're a
saying
sweaty
this the other day.
beast of a man.
I used to wear do-rags all the time. I just wore bandanas all the time in Cancun because if it gets above like 70 degrees, I start sweating.
He's
And
like,
so the idea, yeah, it's like the idea of wearing a headset to me is just like I don't know how it's gonna
yeah,
work.
and I don't know. And for those, if you're watching the video, which is the only way you would be watching this, I mean this thing here, the foam is all the way around. This is where your head goes,
Yeah.
your side of your face, your
Oh, that's
cheek,
gonna get
your
funky
nose,
fast.
and your ears. I mean, if you've got anyone that wears earphones,
Right.
I know you do what I do. You look at it and you think, I do not have that much dead skin coming off of me at all times of the day and night, do I?
I spent a lot of money on the what is it, the JBL. This is before pandemic. I used to go to the gym all the time. I hate the gym, but I also like the gym. Um, but I sweat so bad, so I finally spent the money on this JBL gym headset, which has the actual earmuffs come off, and the foam
Right.
they're not foam. It's like, and these are actually, it's the Rock branded ones, the Dwayne Johnson branded ones, and they were a few $100s. But I'll tell you what, that was the best gym investment I ever made because those removable headset things, you just take them off once a week, throw them in the washing
Throw 'em
machine
in the
or
wash.
whatever, and it's brilliant because all of the foam pieces come off, and it's not even foam. It's like this really durable material that is washable.
Yeah,
And I
it's
wonder if that's the next step for VR headsets is to have some
yeah,
sort of
and
removable.
this does come off this whole piece right here, but it is a this
It's
foam
attached to rubber or something,
is
right?
glued to the plastic piece that I just pulled off. So there's basically absolutely no reason you can replace this whole thing, and I would bet you that's probably 30 or $40 right there
Probably, yeah.
just to get that if it gets nasty and dirty, which so far I don't play enough for that to happen. But that's going to be an issue because you have to have this. If you don't have this, you've got
Plastic right
it's
against
not
your face.
yeah yeah it's just
Not
hard
comfortable.
plastic rubbing against you as you're doing that you're doing your Stevie
I
Wonder
never even
impression, just
thought about the
wiggling your head
sweating
around.
issue until you brought it up, and that's a brilliant, like a logistical thing that's going to have to get figured out long term for the.
Well, that's why you have me here to think of disgusting, horrible problems for the future.
2 months into it, it starts reeking pretty bad.
What's that smell? Did something die? No, that's my VR headset,
It's
honey.
just
Don't
my
worry.
headset.
It's I sprayed it with some Clorox. I'm sure it'll be fine. By the way, it's learned its second language.
It's alive.
But yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. VR is the future, but it has a lot of logistical
Yeah.
issues coming up. And
I
I
mean,
actually, real quick, I remember the first time I did real VR, like headset VR, was in a science museum in the late '90s, and it took you on a virtual tour of the human biological system, and you put on this giant helmet, which is big. It was like 3 times as big as that one, and it ran like Star Fox, if you guys remember
I
that
do
from the
remember that. It was
Super
a good game.
Nintendo.
That was a good
Yeah,
game.
it was that quality of detail as
That's
you went
bad.
through the human body system, which apparently is made up of nothing but triangles and very large ones. So you got swallowed, and all you were able to do, it was on a track. You looked around. I think you had 180 degrees of vision. You couldn't turn all the way around or anything like that, and you went down through the you went to the stomach, you went into the intestines, and then thankfully it ended before you came out the other end, like the quick digesting skinks
I remember
from
doing
Shel Silverstein.
one of the Star
It was awful.
Wars. I remember doing one of the Star Wars rides in Disneyland. Yeah, I mean this has been a long time ago. It would have been late '80s, early '90s. Um,
Star Tours,
yeah, I don't remember. You sat in like
a room,
a room and it moved and everything,
hmm
and you had the
Star
screen.
Tours.
Yeah, I do remember that from years ago when we went out to visit family in California. But I mean, I think that was a cool experience, but it was
And
also, looking back, it's like
hmm
we haven't moved that far beyond that because even the current.
actually, the updated version is now is 4D. It has glasses, so it has
Okay.
4D. So the screen pops out at you more, and they've I we went recently, like recently, several years back, but they've updated it with modern planets. I think it has a total of 9 or 12 planets, and it randomly selects every time you go onto there which
Oh,
3 planets,
let's
and
see.
tells a brand new story each time you do it.
So you can actually get quite a bit of replayability out of it.
Right? Yeah, we went on it 4 times, and I think we repleted 3 planets. But it was fantastic, and I still love the fact that they tilt the room backwards to make it feel like you went to light speed. That was
Yeah,
an because you don't see it, you
feel
feel
it.
gravity pull you back as you go to light speed, which is awesome.
Because I know that a lot of people have talked about the new Millennium Falcon ride that they're promoting at their
Yeah.
new, and that's like an
Mhm.
updated version of that because and you also it's a lot small, it's a lot more intimate because I think only 4 people can go in.
Yeah, and you're actually control like I think one
One
person
person
controls
controls
up and
left, right,
down,
up,
left and right,
yeah, and the other 2 are the
shields and
turrets.
guns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. So
which is a
it's more of an
horrible way to fly a ship.
yeah. Who's gonna do left, right, up, down? Yeah, it's not gonna work
it
that way.
gets the whole family involved. That's what
Right.
happens.
Yeah,
So,
honestly, it sounds like Monopoly the ride. It's just the whole family's going to be fighting by the
yeah,
end of it because you crashed the
I
Millennium
was
Falcon at the
I was
Endor.
by the end of it, I was yelling at my son. He's 6 years old. I'm like, you need to up and down. And
Don't
he's
you
like
know your
crying.
directions? There's
He's
only
yeah,
two of them.
he's like crying. And I was like, no, he wasn't. He was fine.
No, no. That's awesome.
But don't
Yeah.
yell at your kids at Disney World. Your wife will be pissed off at you.
Yeah, my brother and I have been because my nephew is 6 now. Sorry, I just caught that.
Yeah, I
Um,
just caught up to me.
um,
Sorry.
my brother and I have been wanting for a long time. We've been wanting just for ourselves. We want to go, and I've been holding off because I want to wait. And I promise this ties into VR and gaming. Um, I've been waiting for the Star Wars experience until they get the hotels built because I want to go and have the full. Like I'm happy to spend 15, twenty
Well,
thousand
and even
dollars.
the other rides aren't even all done yet.
Right, and like so Nathan Napalm, who we had on the show recently, and I'm part of the Looking for More podcast with him and Simmerg. He took his family to Disney World about a month ago, and he did a video on his YouTube channel, and he was disappointed because it was the Rebel Resistance. It was the other ride, not the
The
Millennium Falcon one.
the resistance something
I
or
think it's
other.
the
Yeah.
resistance. Like he said, there were so many, like it just kept crashing, and so no one could really
Really?
even go. And he said the scheduling was a nightmare. This is the Disney World version, not the Disneyland version, because they've had the Disneyland
Okay.
version. The Disneyland version's been going for a couple of years longer than the Disney World version. So
Yeah, it
the
was open first.
right, so the Disney World version, I guess, still has a ton of bugs in it. It crashes all the time. The scheduling
Huh.
is a nightmare. It was just this huge issue, and he was saying that it's better off to just not go right now until they figure out all the kinks. And I was like, well, it's a good thing that I waited because I
Yeah.
always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to wait to go until they had the hotels finished because when I go, I want to go and have the full like I want a full like 4 or 5 days Star Wars experience where I'm in costume and I'm gonna cosplay and role play and have the hotel staff and I want to feel like I'm in the Star Wars universe
If you're
and
gonna spend that kind of money, get your
yes,
damn money's worth.
yes, because I told my brother I was like if we do this it's gonna cost like $10,000 per
That's
person.
what. That's why we haven't gone with me and my family. I want it. I if I'm going, I want all of what I'm paying for. I
Yes,
don't want to. I don't want to pay half of it. And
yes,
Disneyland, for those of you who have never been to Disneyland or Disney World,
it's not cheap.
it makes movie theaters look like the great value brand at Walmart.
Yeah, it's
And movie theaters, not cheap.
yeah, it's I have not been in a very long time. But my younger brother Joey, who's I work with now, my parents took him to Disney World. This is when I said you got to be lucky being the accident child because we never got to go to Disney World every year. But my dad's uncle worked as a chef at Disney World for like 40 years until he died
Wow.
and he was there forever. So he got all
Company
these,
man.
yeah, he got all these discounts, and so I was out on my own, and because my brother's 13 years younger than me, and so by the time he got to be old enough, my dad actually finally started taking vacations, and so that was their annual thing for like 7 years in a row, is they would go, and the only reason they did it was because they got these huge discounts, because my uncle would give them, the discount packs and everything else, because otherwise, it costs a fortune to go to Disneyland or Disney
Hmm.
World. But not to sidetrack too much, but the reason I brought that up is because what they're promoting with the entire Star Wars experience is this immersive virtual reality, this alternate reality where you can go. The hotels are supposedly going to be done in such a way where it's going to have green screens and holographs and everything's going to immerse you in it like you're actually in the Star Wars universe. Then you'll be able to go do the rides, which they already have a couple of. They're supposedly going to do more. Um, that to me appeals to me,
Hmm.
and not necessarily just the gamer side of me. That's just the nerdy side of me that goes, I want to play in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I want to dress
I
up
mean,
in Star Wars costume.
I you're talking to a guy at our local, what was it? S- uh a local convention that was done by a comic book. I would dress up as a Jedi and I would teach younglings. I would go out there as Master Zanasulagda and teach them the ways of the Force. And we'd all have plastic lightsabers. And we would go, I would teach them. Basically, I ripped off exactly what the Jedi Academy at Disneyland does. If you've ever seen those videos where they
Mm-mm.
teach the kids,
Yep. I was
they
there.
teach
Yeah.
they teach them let go, swing here, duck, swing low, and then they have Vader come out and he lightsaber duels the kids, and I did that
Nice.
with local kids, free of charge. It was just our stupid Star Wars group here at Trek Expo, which is ironic because it was all Star Wars for us. Uh, but it was really a sci-fi convention. They just called it Trek Expo. And I've got pictures of me and probably a dozen kids and two adults. We had extra lightsabers and they wanted to play along.
Why
So
not?
there is a thing for that. That's the people like us that do these kinds of things. We like to be immersed in our fantasy stuff. It works really well. And the only thing I have left on here, the one thing that's really holding VR back, and actually Scribbles, you hit on it first, is there is no Super Mario Brothers for VR. There's a breakthrough game that redefines how games are made. Alex was pretty darn close, but the problem was it's stuck on a on a computer, and there's only so many people. But there is no
Yeah. They don't. Nobody believes in it if there's not a Mario
yeah,
game in
there's
VR.
no have to own. There's
Yeah.
nothing that's good. There's so far there's nothing that's come out that said that's made Renfail say fuck,
I gotta go buy a headset.
I have to get a headset before this comes out. I have got to be ready day one to play this game. That doesn't exist yet, and until it does,
We haven't crossed that
VR is
threshold.
right. We haven't crossed that path yet, and until it happens, it's gonna be stuck in this weird limbo of as a niche video game offshoot, like playing. Is it slightly better than the Virtual Boy? What isn't? But it's also not the Game Boy yet either.
That's a good point. Which might actually be a good closing point. I don't know if you guys have any other things that you want to talk about on the theme. Yes, no, maybe.
That was pretty much all I had, I think.
I think I've covered all the things that were on my list, but I do like that as a closing note. Until a game comes out that is a must own, I must have this. I must have a headset to play this. We haven't quite got there yet, and I'm
Mhm.
personally I'm invested in VR as a concept. Like I've been invested in it since I was a kid. That's what got me into EverQuest was the idea of going into that world and immersing myself in the environment. So if we can actually get to that point with virtual reality, I'm sold on it and I will go out and buy a headset like that. But until that day
Yeah,
comes,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm all for innovation in gaming, but we just need to, advance a little bit more before we can actually get on board. And I hope these new games that are trying to, think outside the box are going to make it. Definitely.
Yeah.
all right.
And I also probably should note that actually the VR headset I have actually not
Yeah.
actually bought a VR headset. This is my brother-in-law's who got it, thought he could play World of Warcraft with it, realized that
Oh
that's
my
not a
god.
thing that exists, and just let me hold on to it until one day when he asks for it back, which has been now 2.5 years. So
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I
sure he
bought
doesn't even remember I have it.
I bought one, but geez, wish I had my brother-in-law give it to me though, right?
Yeah.
It's I'm not gonna say it's an awesome deal, but it was a pretty awesome
It's
deal.
a pretty awesome deal. All right, where can we find you guys on the interwebs?
www.defendthenightgame.com. You can check out our game. It's MMORPG in development. It's dark fantasy. Check us out. Join the Discord.
Yep. And for me, if you want to listen to me record shows live, twitch.tv/crash while loading. If you want to listen to it as the podcast form, which happens after I do that, download a podcast app, type in crash while loading. I'm probably there.
All right,
Hopefully.
folks, and you can also check out the links below for all the links to their various places where you can find them. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon so you get updates for all the future content. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to leave comments. Let us know what you guys think about virtual reality, pros, cons, future of it, etc. And we will be listening and responding as you do so. Until next time, stay safe. Talk to you next time, everybody. Cheers.